What's good, y'all? It's Mark and Jade Godbolt here. We're just a couple of millennials who met at the peak of our careers as a beauty influencer and a corporate cool kid who decided that life wasn't enough without God. Our platform and this show are all about how our journey to healing and how following after Jesus really changed us and our marriage forever. We aren't your traditional churchgoers, and we appreciate that about ourselves. Through our testimonies, we hope that you find relief, comfort, revelation, and most importantly, the Spirit of God. Let's get into this episode.
We back. We're here with yet another conversation. The kids are sleeping, nap time vibes. So yeah, how are you doing today? It's like what, 12:30 ish. It's been a jam-packed day. I know I was up at 7. Time the kids wake up 7:30. Sarai literally. It's, I don't know, 4 a.m. I see her walking into the playroom with me and Micah. I'm like, I didn't even, at that point, I'm just like, okay, like she's here and I'm not about to get up.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. So she fell asleep in our bed last night. And
because you said that she can sleep with us.
Yes. And
when she fell asleep, like, there was no invitation and she just ended up there. No, you gave her the invitation, but go ahead.
She fell asleep in our bed. Micah wakes up maybe around 1 or 2. You go get Micah. Y'all go lay down in the playroom, which is at this point an every night situation. Yeah. Then Sarai was just like having dreams, like bad dreams. So she kept waking up crying. And just like, not even crying, but it was like more like whining. Like it was annoying. Like she was just like whining. And then I kept trying to wake her up because I could tell she was like in the middle of a dream. Yeah. And finally, when I got her to wake up, like maybe the 4th or 5th time, she was like, I want my daddy. I want my daddy. So I was like, well, you can go in the playroom and go sleep with him. So that's when she got up and she went and slept with you.
I'll say this, like, she definitely wasn't waking up when she came. She woke up one time because Michael was sleeping wild. So, like, when she came in, we were laying in a way where there wasn't a lot of space, so I just kind of took the L and was on the very tip of the couch, and she was sleeping like perpendicular to me. Then Michael was next to her, so they both sleep wild. So every now and then Michael would like roll over and hit her, and I kept waking up through the night, just honestly making sure that they were like as comfortable as possible, so they can stay asleep because Michael's been teething. So it's been like, okay, if I can get him to actually sleep consistently, I'd rather that. She came in. One time I had to wake up to like move Micah. I ended up moving him to the right side of me instead of like having them together. But she woke up last. Like Micah woke up first at like 7. She woke up like 7:20, 7:30. And yeah, it was vibes.
Okay. Well, how are you feeling today?
I feel good. So Bible study Wednesday night was incredible, the memo. And I always walk away from that conversation with real life things that I can put into practice. Where I can see that, okay, by applying this versus this, I get a better result. And now being the day after, which was yesterday, so Thursday, prayer continued to come up. And since we talked about prayer last week, and I actually want to read that scripture. I don't have my Bible. I'm using my iPad. I want to read the scripture because it gives context to what we're about to talk about in terms of like how I'm doing, because this blew my mind today. So Matthew 6, Jesus is talking about prayer. And we're going to pick up in verse 5 and 6. And when you pray, you shall not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the corners of the streets, that they may be seen by men. Surely I say to you, they have their reward. But you, when you pray, go into your room, and when you have shut your door, pray to your Father who is in the secret place, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. And so that's continued to touch me, because when we talked about it initially, the initial revelation God gave me was when you pray in private, you say things that you won't say yet in public. So it's this realizing, this knowing that like, hey, I ain't ready to say this like on a stage, but I need to say this.
Or maybe I'm not even ready to say this in front of anybody.
Of anybody, yeah. Of a stage, of two people, or even sometimes yourself. And
which, can I pause you here? Because when we talked about this earlier, this is also something that I thought about, is that for so long, I felt like, I feel like I really had this disconnect between what I was praying about and what was actually going on inside of me.
Me too.
And there's like literally a disconnect. Like these are two separate things when in all actuality, they're supposed to be one thing. And so like when you say why you go into your private place first, and this idea that you're not ready to say this to people or to a stage is very real, because I think more of us than not approach prayer as like a presentation of sorts, and we present whatever we can think of versus having this other perspective of like what you're about to go into. So I'll let you continue on.
So you saying that brings this up. So immediately after this conversation, last Wednesday night about prayer, and I was continuing to think about prayer, and then I read a book that was talking about like prayer from a real organic origin way, and the Holy Spirit loud and clear was like, I know everything, true. But if I didn't know where you were, could I locate you? Could I get a precise location of where you were through your prayer? And I was like, whoa. Because if you think about it, if you're in darkness, not just figuratively, but literally, you can't see anything. All you can do is hear. Hear your prayers.
Yeah.
So if you're in the dark, you don't know where you are, or rather, God doesn't know where you are, and all He has to go on are your prayers. Would He be able to locate you?
Yeah.
That blew my mind, because it's like, wow. To your point of that disconnect, oftentimes when we're praying, we don't even locate ourselves.
Right. We don't know. We just trying to say, God, I want this, or I want to be there, or I want you to change this in my life, or whatever it may be. It's like a projection of what we want or what we desire, instead of recognizing where we're actually at, like right now, which reminds me of like TC's like phrase of the year, which is like, here is holy. But also this concept of like what our father-in-law says, your stepdad says, is he always says like, do you lie to yourself when you're by yourself?
Yeah.
And it's that same concept of like, when you're by yourself and you're really talking to yourself and also in prayer, are you being truthful about like where you're really at and what you really desire? Because what you say out of your mouth really may not be what's in your heart. Because you could be praying for certain things and saying that you want certain things, but that's not really revealing what's truly in your heart. Those things might match if you're emotionally and spiritually in tune.
They're revealed in your actions.
Right.
So
what's
we
really
think
in
that
your heart.
when we don't say it, it's not coming out. It's coming out.
Oh, yeah.
That's why it's important to say it.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't come out in an action.
Yeah. Because it's going to come out some way.
Yeah. So as I'm like, that has transformed in a week's time. That's transformed the way I pray. And that was tested this week. we're going through. And so I'm praying. And at first I'm like, praying normal.
Well, why don't you tell us from your perspective what we're going through right now?
Okay. So from my perspective, well, should I finish the prayer or should we end with that? Because if I go into my perspective, that's going to take us into a whole other conversation.
Okay, so why don't...
Because I really want to, this was my plan. This is God's plan. And we're trying to,
Okay, well, finish out what your thought, but definitely, I think it's important for us to share, the reality of,
oh, for sure,
where we're at right now, which is why this revelation for you was so, major.
So, cool. We'll put a pin in that. So, prayer, our prayers have changed because of that first revelation of God already knows. So, that's for us. The prayer, the being honest, the being transparent out of our mouths with how we're really feeling, where we really are, all of that. That's for us to say, because if we don't say it first there, we'll never say it here.
Right. So,
boom. I don't dream. I'm going to give y'all a very kind of short version of the story, but I don't normally dream in the midst of creating.
Well, I think you don't normally remember your dreams. I think
technically
we all dream.
Well, no, not all the time though, because I just started to dream as of late. I used to dream when I was younger, but I would discount them. And then even since I discounted those dreams when I was younger because I didn't understand the spiritual implication at all about dreams, I just thought, okay, I'm just dreaming, whatever, throw it away.
Yeah.
Then there was never a need in my mind to remember a dream.
Yeah.
So I would sporadically dream, but I didn't take them for nothing. So I would just dream and then whatever, it's just a dream. Right? I woke up, I'm here, I'm in reality, that's what matters.
Yeah.
And so, as of late, doing the spiritual work, I've started to understand how God speaks to us in dreams. He always has. And
how really dreams connect us to the spirit realm on all sides. So God can speak to us through our dreams, but also demonic spirits and the enemy can speak to us through our dreams, because we are actually more like antennas for the spirits than anything else. So if our hearts are channeled onto godly things and pursuing God, then there's a antenna, there's a connection, and there's a transmission happening, right, of messages, versus if we're watching craziness on TV or listening to all sorts of things, or just in a lot of other things, we will be antennas for spirits that operate in those realms to transmit messages to us.
I got you started on your... She loves talking about spiritual
stuff. I do.
She just goes to a whole nother place. But back to the dreams. And so I'm working on this collection. It's been in the works for months at this point. And we've already started manufacturing. We've already started with our tech packs. I'm about to start our first samples. The story was incredible. I feel like this is the best thing that I've ever created. And I've created some amazing things. Yeah.
We were very excited about this collection.
This is, the storytelling is incredible.
Yeah.
New pieces, the color, the people that are working on the product itself, they're spiritually led people. So it's just everything is clicking. Got the money for the project. Everything's clicking, right? So all of a sudden I have this dream. And when I finish the dream, I wake up at 4 a.m. and normally I don't write dreams down, nothing. But this day I'm I gotta write this down because it's too significant. And I don't know what it means, but it's clearly important. Write it down. I got a paragraph in my notes at 4:23 in the morning. So I get up the next day, I go get coffee on purpose so I can talk to God. God, what is going on? Because
you were shook.
I was shook, and because it was too real, not too real from a standpoint of like it could happen, because in a part of the dream, Sarai is in two places at the same time. So obviously that can't happen. But one was a spiritual version of her that wasn't of God. The other was actually her. And one I was supposed to kill, but I couldn't kill it because it looked like my child. Mm-hmm. And so I'm shook. Pray about it. I ask God to reveal it. Get home. And as I'm finally telling you about the dream, God reveals, as I'm telling you, not only things that I thought that I'd forgotten about the dream, but also the interpretation of the dream.
Yeah.
Which was to put down Godbolt the brand. And put my energy into A, my family, which I didn't know like how that was going to come to life yet. And B, the memo, which is ministry, which was the very thing that I was fighting and was like, I'm not.
40 years.
That ain't me. Like there were prophecies that I hadn't even told you. Mm-hmm. Because I was just like, I will not be that.
So we don't have to go too much into like prophetic words that you've gotten over your lifetime. But when would you say you got the first prophetic word over your life when it came to ministry?
But I remember probably like 13.
Okay.
Yeah, 12, 13.
Okay, so go back to your dream.
So, but I'm still like, okay, whoa, because I understand what this means. Like, financially, this was a big part of our plan.
Yep.
For the end of the year.
Yes.
Like a big chunk of that. So,
yes.
When I'm getting, it's crazy because as I'm sharing the interpretation with you, I'm sharing it very timidly. Mm-hmm. Because, and honestly, not even being as full as, it was crystal clear in my mind, but out of my own fear, I was putting it through a filter as I'm saying it to you, because I'm like, she ain't gonna like this. like this goes against this goes against my plan, this goes against her plan, this goes against our plan.
Yep.
So I'm very like apprehensively sharing this interpretation. And even in that, saying, I'm going to keep praying. I'm probably going to fast because I want to make sure before diving in that this is what is being said. And then go to sleep that night. Have another dream.
Yep.
And this dream is connected to that dream. So I'm in a dream talking about a dream that's in a dream. Even like people I've shared all the dreams with, they've been like, I've never heard of a dream within a dream in a dream.
Like you legitimately, and I don't know how much you want to go into the actual dreams themselves, but the fact that in the dream, the second night, you are telling someone about the dream that you had the first night, that's like insane. And whenever you told me about this initially, I mean, I've already been kind of obsessed with dreams and like understanding the spiritual side of these things and like interpretations. And obviously God is the ultimate interpreter of these things. And if God wants to reveal what these dreams mean, he will. But like, you know, we could run ourselves into a rabbit hole trying to interpret them using our own fleshly understandings, right? So like part of me had to actually hold myself back from going insane on the research side of it, because I just was so fascinated by like this concept of like both dreams. Because spiritually I felt up until this point, like after you told me that first dream, I knew immediately that what you were saying was truth. And I could tell that you were timidly telling it to me because you were afraid of how I was going to respond. And I ended up getting frustrated because I wasn't necessarily frustrated with you. I was actually frustrated with the idea that our plans were going to change again. So
I knew that. Like that was the main thing. It
but
was,
not even just that.
I didn't want you to like. This kind of goes into like the prayer thing later as well, but just like as a man, the way we've been raised here in this world to view what manhood is. Mm-hmm. The last thing I wanted to do is say, shoot, I'm not going to be so when I first left Nike, like one of the biggest battles that we would have, especially like once we were actually married, because prior to us getting married, we still had the finances of Nike.
Yeah.
And
we were living together, so we were paying bills together and all this.
Then right when that happened, the NFL check from that job came through. So it was like we were in abundance, right?
Yeah.
And we're in abundance that I was directly contributing to.
Yeah.
We get married and that changes drastically. And a lot of our conversations early on was like me feeling less than as a man because I'm not bringing home a check. And me feeling like things were changing in my life but not understanding it because like I've been in position I've been on my own since really 18, 19 years old, mm-hmm. like providing for myself, working, grinding, mm-hmm. all of the above, and built a retail job from Nike to a whole corporate position where I'm living and working on the campus. So to me, like this is very new for me. And part of my drive, even in that, was not ever going back to where I used to be. Mm-hmm. So now I'm in a position to where God is changing that again. And honestly, starting a period of breaking down all of that.
Yep.
To rebuild it the way he saw it as a man in his eyes that is fully faithful and submitted to him.
Yeah.
But in my worldly eyes, my nigga, you ain't doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And so even now, to me, it kind of went back to that, and I would even see this as growth, even in telling you that dream, because I think about in the Bible when Samuel gets the dream or gets it's honestly, it's kind of a dream because he is sleeping and God is calling him. Mm-hmm. And he keeps going to the priest, Eli, and Eli's like, go back to sleep. By the third time, Eli's like, that's God calling you. Yeah. So when he calls you again, say, here I am, like Samuel. Yeah. And when God gives Samuel this prophecy that is basically going to kill off Eli and his seed. And Eli asked Samuel, what did God say? And it was in Samuel's obedience to say exactly what God was telling him to say. Even though to the person he was saying, it was like death. Like Eli could have killed him, mm-hmm. like out of rage. Mm-hmm. But him being obedient to share exactly what God said. And I felt like in that moment, it was almost like a test because I didn't want to tell you as it's coming to me for a split second. It's like, I'm not saying that mm-hmm. until I fasted and prayed, and then I'll come the next day. So even me saying it to you in that moment was like, God, I'm being obedient, and it hurts. Yeah, I don't want to.
And even in your explanation and breakdown of the dream, you were like, now I don't know, I'm gonna fast, I'm gonna pray about it, blah blah blah. But I took it as God said this, and this is what it is. So that's why for me, I was immediately like kind of a ball of emotions because I'm just like, okay, God, like it wasn't even really at you. It was more like me and God like being at odds. Like, Lord, you gave him the vision for this collection. Like, you told us to do the, like, now you saying not to, and now I'm like...
Pause, because in one of the Bible studies after this, one of the guys...
Also, real quick, okay, we also have to recognize the fact that God shows his character and the patterns of way he operates in his word. The way that you were able to just, like... bring in that story of Samuel.
It. Well, not even that. Remember when I told you, because that was another thing. When he's telling me, at first, in my head, I said, show me in your word. I had just read I want to say it's 2 Kings, maybe 1 Kings, when Elijah goes to anoint Elisha. And goes, puts his cloak on him, and just leaves. So Elisha was out working in the field, chases after Elijah, and he's like, hey, like, can I go and, tell my parents bye? And he hadn't said a word to Elisha. All he done was walked up to him while he was working, doing what he was supposed to do, doing what he was told to do, and threw his cloak on him. Elijah says, I didn't stop you, go ahead. He goes, tells his parents to stop by, kills his oxen, and gives it to his family to, like, eat and all of that. Burns his equipment because he was going into ministry. Mm-hmm. And had he still been trying to see after, to check on what he left behind, when it got hard, he would have went right back to that thing.
100,000%.
And we do that all the time. Where, like, God will call us or something. It's like, all right, cool, God, I'm going to come. But I'm going to keep my plan B. Just in case things don't go. And I started to think about Peter and Simon, like, they're fishing, and like Jesus says, come with me and you'll be fishermen of men. They had just had the biggest fish day of their entire careers, and they left all of that. They left their family, they left everything to follow after Jesus. And so when those things start to flood my mind, I'm like, okay. This is what it is. And honestly, that gave me the strength to even share that with you.
Yeah.
In that moment, because it's like, God, like you confirmed it with your word.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that very thing is a thing that I just read in your word.
Yep.
Last night or yesterday or whatever.
Yeah.
It was like fresh bread.
Yeah.
Fresh bread.
And I didn't even have all that context. I mean, I kind of knew where you were in your study, because we always talk about, what you're into, but I was frustrated. I'm not gonna lie, I was pissed. I was just like, here we go again with another change, we about to have a baby in a few months. Like, I was trying to settle into just, like, honestly, like, not having so much pressure on me to perform and to bring in, like, an income and all that stuff, because part of me was also kind of falling into, society's expectations of a woman. And, while yes, I would love to be able to, like, not have the pressure of working, at the very same time, I love what I do. And the only reasons why I'm in a season where it's harder and a little bit more frustrating and uncertain is because of the point in time that I'm at, of transitioning out of being lipstick and curls and, reintroducing myself as who I am now, and the struggles that I've been facing with that. Like, it's been hard. People don't understand that when you have a platform, and this is kind of going on to a tangent, but I'm trying to, give context to where I was at and where I am at, is that I've had an audience of some sort since I was 15 years old. I'm 31. So I jumped from MySpace and the Kindle Twins era and catfish situations and all sorts of stuff in the late 2000s to then being a YouTuber from 2010 to really 2016, 17 heavily of producing YouTube content. I've produced YouTube content for all these years, but really heavily back in those days, that's where I became more of kind of my known as Lipstick and Curls for beauty tutorials and curly hair and all that kind of stuff, and started working with brands and made this like a full-on career. And, years go by, I'm living that life as an influencer, content creator full-time. And now I'm sharing more of my life as far as like motherhood, our marriage, our faith, still having, beauty things in the mix there, but I'm no longer wearing my hair curly all the time. And some people accept it, some people don't. And I've seen what that's done to my platform. I've seen the lack of growth. And I don't deem success based on whether I'm growing in follower count every year, but I can't lie and say that I'm not discouraged by the algorithms and the trends that are happening on these apps now, and the overproduction of content to just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks, instead of having this idea of like putting out your best. And I know that it's a different time and age for content and things of that nature. And I can appreciate short form, 5-second clips that are really great and kind of keep you like really entertained, and, all these things, and are ways that people can create livelihoods and become full-time influencers. I appreciate all of that. But as someone who has been in the game for over a decade, it's been a tough season for me to adjust to making all this content just to keep up with an industry that I've been in for so long and never had to do this much work for. Hey, are you enjoying the show so far? We'd love to hear what you think. Give us a review wherever you're listening, and definitely hop in our DMs on social media. We love hearing how this show is leaving an impact on your hearts and your minds. Now let's get back to the show. And it's not even the fact that I'm tired or I don't want to do it. It's that in order to do what I do best, I need time, I need space, I need breathing room. And I'm not the creator that's going to be putting out 6 pieces of content every day just to say I'm putting it out. But, finding the balance within all that. So I say all that to say, when you had this dream and it was going to drastically change our outlook financially and lifestyle wise moving forward, I was kind of all over the place, because it was going to be a change in our day-to-day life. It was also going to be a change in my mindset, as far as I had kind of believed this fairy tale that you were going to drop this collection, it was going to boom, and you were going to start making all this money, and I was going to be able to chill out and not care about my platform anymore, and not have to keep up with all the trends, and not have to be pressed about getting work and all that kind of stuff. So when you told me what God had showed you and told you in this dream and the second dream, it kind of shattered my like fairy tale. And now it's like I've been able to embrace it and kind of like, get past that. But that was my initial all over the placeness, was just like, I'm in a tough position right now professionally. It's not easy, like where I'm at. And to think and know that God isn't just creating this like exit strategy for me, and instead he's like, no, I need to use you still. I need you still to be on your platform. I need you still to be showing up for people. And I actually need you to do it more. And I need you to get back on it in a new way, in a bigger way. It was just like a little overwhelming. But it's crazy
because if you think about it, right, like you weren't necessarily saying those things consistently. However, like going to the beginning, I could sense it. It was coming out in your actions, which made it even harder to, like, I have this dream And it's like, how am I going to tell her this? Like, that's why I needed to go on that coffee break by myself. Because I have to say to God in private before I can say anything in public, like, God, what is this? Because what it feels like it is, there's no way it can be that. Because you see what not only the expectations that my wife has of me, but the expectation that the world has put on me, the expectation that my kids have on me, the expectation that has been ingrained in me. I've already been dealing with, like, should I have left Nike because, or all these opportunities people been reaching out, yo, like, come do this here, come join this brand, I'm here now, I think you, and I'm like, nah, God got me doing something, I don't know what that is yet, but God got me doing something else. Am I stupid for telling them no? Like, can I reach back out? My LinkedIn been blowing up. Should I go and reach out? Should I go work at Starbucks? Like all these things are going through my mind. So, ministry? God, really? Humor me, God. Because ministry ain't bringing in no money. So humor me, God. Like, that was really my mindset. So no, you didn't say a lot of these things until after, but I felt them in your actions. Like, before we had even changed up our schedule officially, you'd already changed up our schedule unofficially. And was brash when I wasn't making it. And I'm like, we didn't talk about this. Like, this was supposed to start. What are we doing? Like, why are you?
Because when I
like, what's going on?
When I feel insecure, I turn to work. Like, that's always been my habit. Is like, and I think part of that is because I have a gift of just endurance and ideas and work ethic. So when it comes to figure out a situation, give it to me, because I'll figure it out. I'll get it done. And that's one of those things where, I had to remind myself that, the gifts are without repentance, right? So when you have the ability to do something really well, like for me, it's creating content, it's showing up to my audience and all these things. When you have the ability to do something well, to have the restraint and the obedience to only use those gifts when God is telling you to, and not use them for your own personal gain or desire, that's tough. Because when you start feeling insecure, for me, I'm like, I'm just going to lean on this gift.
No, not for you. Like, that's why God said stop dying.
T-shirts.
Okay, T-shirts and stuff. Okay. Got a clientele. I'm working with stylists for athletes. It's okay, God. Stop for a little bit, and it's like, okay, money getting tight. Okay, let me dive back in because I know I can do a few of these and make. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I completely stopped until He gave me the next thing. But it's crazy because you're talking about leaning on that gift, right? And it's like, it's one thing to come to God because I don't have nothing. Like, I can't do this without you, like, literally. Mm-hmm. But it's another thing to, you got the concept, you're done with the designs, got the manufacturer, you got the money. Can God trust you to still say no? You have everything that you need to do everything that you want. Even everything that He called. Abraham got a son. God said, let me get him back. Can I trust you? Like, I have never felt so sure about, I told you, like, there's been shirts that I worked on at Nike where I did them, I'm like, yeah, like, this gonna hit. And sure enough, season come up, $5 million this season. 10 of the, five of the top 10 shirts were shirts that I created. It's like, I know when something is going to hit. I've also known, and like some of my stuff that I've created, were like, that ain't really it. Like, I don't have that, like, this is going to be it. Mm-hmm. This, I was like, yeah, this going to be it. I've shared the story. I've shared, like, some of the designs with people. They're like, yo, like, one of my homeboys, I was telling him that just to tell him about the dreams and, like, what I'm doing now. And he's like, yo, like, from what I hear, it's basically done. Like, we need this. Won't you, like, can't you still do it and still be in ministry? And it's like, clearly not, because God told me to put that aside.
Not even to put it to the side. He said, kill it.
Well, kill it. And while you were talking, I smiled because God took me to when he sent Moses to Pharaoh. Moses had a family. Whether you read it in Genesis or Jasher, Moses had a family. Moses had children. You pick up in Exodus, when they first got out, Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought his family to meet him where he was in the wilderness. So Moses had responsibility, and God said, hey, I got that taken care of if you trust me. I need you to go do this ministry and save my children. Will you say yes? He has a reason not to. But God, my kids are over here and I got to provide for my... No, I am. That wasn't just for the journey to come. That was for the journey that he was in. I am. And I mean, that's blessing me right now because, like, being very transparent with y'all, like, we're in a position to where we're in it. Like, the memo is picking up and, like, there's things happening, and we wake up and Jay's with the kids until 9, and then I'm with the kids from 9 to about 4:30, 5 o'clock every Monday through Friday. And it's difficult because, so in my private prayer time yesterday, I was very honest with God. I said, God,
because we had a little situation pop up yesterday, or no, not yesterday, 2 days ago. And
it spilled into yesterday.
But essentially what happened is I have found solid ground on this new schedule. Because for me, the past 3 years, ever since you left Nike, even before you left Nike, ever since Sarai was born in July 2019, my work schedule and workflow has been completely changed and different. So I'm talking about, I've been creating content for over a decade, and just 3 years ago, that workflow was considerably disrupted and changed. So I'm not only having to adjust to a new workflow because now I'm a mom, but I'm having to adjust to being a mom. And then a few months later, you leave Nike. So now I'm adjusting to you being home all the time. And also managing Sarai by myself. But not really, because you're home now. So that was a great help because you started being super active and, like, I mean, you were super active before, but, like, you were there physically. But that still wasn't like a super succinct and focused schedule. It was still kind of up there. Then you add on the pandemic and we moved to Texas. Yeah. Work schedule completely thrown off. Mind you, you're still trying to build your brand, Godbolt, simultaneously. So you're still taking time away to work on your stuff and do your thing. So we're splitting.
And I'm trying to do it the right way.
Yes.
Which also makes it a longer process.
Yes.
Because I'm not trying to use shortcuts.
Yes. And like you're going the cut and sew route, manufacturing, so all of those things. So it was taking time and effort. Mm-hmm. And we were still juggling baby back and forth, which was hard because there was no clear idea of, like, this is your time, this is my time. It was very fluid. Yeah. And that worked for a period of time because we only had one kid at home by herself. Then we have Micah. That completely shifts our whole world again. And then after Micah, I have postpartum depression very intensely for a few months. So it really took me out of my complete content schedule idea after having Micah. Like, there was no schedule. There was no weekly plan for content. There was no hardly weekly content, because I was struggling to figure out, how do I manage a household, being a wife, being a mom of 2 under 2, and also these expectations of me. I'm still getting brand deals and having to work, and then also doing so it was just a lot going on. And then we get pregnant again. And so for me, it was like the other day when we had our little issue, we had finally gotten to a place where I had back a steady scheduled workflow that I could depend on and have solid foundation on, and be able to click off my mom hat and my wife hat and be in work mode. Because I can't do all of those things at the same time. I can't produce the best that I can do when all those things are colliding at the same time and I'm trying to juggle all these things. And like, people ask me, like, how do you balance doing all this stuff? I'm like, barely. I feel like we're just now getting to a point where there's better balance, because the last few years were really like hard for me from that professional perspective. So when we had that little issue the other day, it was a matter of, you kind of deviated from our plan, from morning to 9, I'm with the babies. From 9 to 5, you're with the babies. And after that, it's family time. We do it together. You had slightly deviated from that in the afternoon. And I was already just like having a stressful day. And I like low-key lost it on you, because I was like...
Not low-key.
But whatever.
Yeah,
I'm also 7 months pregnant. So like, my hormones are a little intense right now.
Yeah.
But it was a real... I felt a real sense of insecurity creep in, because everything is such a delicate balance. So when one of us is off or one of us deviates, it can really shake things up.
And I think even in that, right? Because what frustrated me about it was how it wasn't a deviation on purpose. Mm-hmm. Like, I was actually continuing the process of killing Godbolt. Like, yeah. So I wasn't just out here like things took longer than they were normally supposed to take.
Right, but I mean, that's part of the process of just us adjusting to this new place. And I get, which is why God will use everything. Like, He showed us through this conflict that we had that like, we need to be on point with one another about like what's going on and where we really are at.
At this, the enemy will use anything too.
100%.
And like that to know that and to understand that really does place things into context. And it does all the time for me, because like there's times where I feel like, I would be justified in feeling worried about this, being angry about this, and then God will let me know, hey, so you can use this too, and you need to be on. Mm-hmm. Because when you're not on, this thing could turn into and become something bigger than it ever has to be. Yeah. So if I can't talk to nobody else in the house, I need to be able to tap into you. Wow. So yes, I don't always get that sacrifice right, because sometimes it's like, but nah, like this ain't cool. Yeah. So I'm and God is continuing to work on me, and I have to be able to tap into my son at all times.
Yeah.
So we get to this place where I'm getting ready to go on Bible study, and we're continuing to like talk about prayer, but I'm realizing I can't go like this. Mm-hmm. And I closed the door, and I started to worship, and I started to pray exactly how I felt. And little did I know, I get to it this morning, and I'm reading this book about like prayer and how when Adam prayed, he was so intentional. There was a level of humility where like, instead of coming from this place of God, I know you're going to do it, so I'm not even going. It's like, no. God, my wife feels like this, and I don't know how to comfort her. Like, he poured his whole heart out to God. And it wasn't pretty, and it wasn't politically correct. And it was humility at its finest, to where Adam was so low that only God could have picked him up. And in that moment, the Holy Spirit said, this is why you go to your closet. Because before you can say anything to your wife, you have to say it to yourself. So it's not just about, quote unquote, talking to God. It's not just about that. God don't need you to tell him where you are. He already knows. You need to say it, because then once I said it, then I can sit you down afterwards and tell you. Because the first time is always the hardest.
Yeah.
What if the first time is to you?
Yeah.
The Holy Spirit said, before you could ever tell Jade that you cheated, you told me that you cheated. You told me. Not it was in your head.
Right. Right.
You were riding in that car down Clackamas Avenue, and you said it out of your mouth. That's the power of prayer. Before you can say it out of your mouth to anybody else, you gotta go into your closet. Like, it is impossible to do. I've never met nobody that said, yeah, I confess to cheating on the test in front of the whole class.
That's so good, and such an incredible revelation, because it's so true. And it's like I was saying earlier, that disconnect between what's in your heart and what you decide to say, can be so huge.
Yeah.
And when I think about all the moments where I really broke down and really just like finally started to heal from childhood traumas and just things that I've been through over my lifetime, it always had that element attached. In some way, shape, or form, I was literally admitting to myself that these things were real. The way I was feeling was actually real. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think other people who believe differently than we do as believers in Christ will lean into this concept of like positive self-talk and meditation and other ways of having that kind of process of saying what is going on and what is your truth versus...
But that's the thing, you're not even saying what's your truth. You're saying what you desire for your truth to be. Well,
but no, even honestly, like, I genuinely believe that there are people who don't believe in Jesus that heal to a certain extent because they're using the same principles.
Facts.
That's what I'm trying to get at. Facts, it's like they're being honest about how they really feel. They're getting it out, having a spiritual experience with that, not recognizing that
a spiritual experience.
It's a spiritual experience, not because of the rock that you're praying to, but it's because of the fact that you're actually saying out of your mouth the power of the tongue, which God created. This pathway is what is actually doing the healing work. You're just misinformed as to where that source of power is coming from. So when I think about, you know, and we can go way into a whole nother conversation about this, but this idea that these spiritual aspects of our human experience are very much so real, and there's a way that God intended all of them to go for us. There's a lot of ways that you can tap into the spirit realm, like all sorts of ways, but there's only one way to do it the way that God intended us to do it. So when we talk about prayer to the living God, and he tells us to go in our quiet place, to speak to him, tell him where we are, what is on our hearts, not because he don't know, but because he wants us to experience that spiritual act, physical act of making spirit and flesh the same thing.
There was a part in Adam's prayer that I read, like Adam's first prayer, like the first recorded prayer. And Adam says, like, all these things of like where he was. Mm-hmm. Then there's a point where I guess Adam stops, and God says, "Keep going, my son." Mm. And Adam continues with more, as showing that like God already knew. Mm-hmm. God also knew that you getting this out is good for you.
Yeah, releasing it. Yeah.
So at a point where maybe Adam was like, "Okay, I'm done." God, no, there's more.
Yeah.
I want you to. I don't do a halfway healing.
I'm not gonna leave a little bit left so you can keep feeling like you have an obligation to come to me. You can get healing in one sitting if you wanted it.
You have an obligation to keep coming to me.
I mean, from an obedience perspective,
that some can grow into bigger.
Yeah. Yes.
And I want to actually heal you because right after this, God comforts him and God says, "Now I need you to get up and go to your wife and I'm going to go with you because she needs comforting." It was Adam going into his private place first so that he can go and comfort his wife. He couldn't comfort his wife being down with her. He had to go to I had to go to my private place before I could talk to you today.
Yeah.
Had I not did that, I wouldn't have been able to actually tell you these things. I tried yesterday. It didn't work. Did
not work.
I couldn't get. I was literally holding it back because I hadn't even said it out of my own mouth. Mm-hmm. Like it's like in a way these feelings in my head were just that, versus like no, these are real, bro. Address them. Yeah. They're not going away. Yeah. And we have this thing about suppressing and well, if I just keep saying good things to myself, it's gonna change. Yeah, that's a part of it.
Yeah. Again, it's a pathway. It's a spiritual practice, but it's not the full thing. So you're only going to get some of the benefits of it.
God wants you to have it all.
God wants you to have it all.
God wants you to have it all. So yeah, we talked about that in prayer, like I said, not this past Wednesday, but the Wednesday before. And it's just like every single night we leave with these like tangible things that we can apply, and then we see a result. Yeah. Then we're coming back the next week and doing like the first testimony portion, like we're sharing like, hey, this is what happened. And oftentimes, like every week, somebody says something that happened that changed their life that they just started doing after the week before. Like we talked about the week before, and it's like I applied it, and this was the result.
And not only that, I get messages from the wives. Like legitimate messages from the wives, from the women around these men that y'all are having this time with every Wednesday night, who are like legitimately thanking me for creating an atmosphere for this to even be in existence, because they recognize like we got little kids. We got a lot going on too. Like it's not like, we got all this free time and it's just something that we, it's a commitment. And it's a sacrifice. And to see that not only are these men being positively impacted, but you are too.
Oh, every week.
And I get to experience that as your wife of like, there's real growth happening. You're not just like telling these men what to do, how to read the Bible and what to interpret and all. It ain't that. At all. It's not that. It's something totally different. Something totally, I haven't seen or heard men talk about experiences the way that men talk about this Bible study. And so that's, to me, is just a testament to God is doing a new thing. And so when I look at, the decisions that we've made and we've been led to make over the past few years, has it been tough? Yes. Has it been scary? Yes. Has it increased our faith? Yes.
It had to, like, even continuing like down like the Moses path, right? And it's like Moses never went back to like where he was comfortable living for all those years. And reading the book of Joshua, Moses was royalty where God called him from. He was a king. He was a freaking king. He wasn't just some. You don't get that context in the 66 book Bible.
Yeah.
So like when you read Joshua, and it gives you like from when Moses was born and like how he grew up and how he got his speech. You get all of these lines up with Genesis, but you just get more.
Yeah, context.
More context. So when you get the God leaves no room for man's own interpretation.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. In
anything that God has written or said, there's no room for man to assume, well, I think, no. It's out there. You may not want to go and get it or read where it is, but it's present.
Yeah.
And Moses was a king. Moses was called out of the place to somewhere very uncomfortable that he wasn't used to leading at that capacity, where it's like millions of people that I connect to because we look the same, but it kind of stops there. Like they don't even believe in God the way I have a relationship with you. Mm-hmm. Like literally. And he never returns and goes through a wilderness. He never even sees the promised land. Now the grace of God on our lives to like experience the promised land.
Right.
Moses did not.
So it's not even about, everyone reaching this happy ending in life. That's not what we're talking about here. Yeah. We're talking about a life that is focused around
God's purpose
and obedience and purpose. Like,
yes, Mark's dream was to build a crazy brand like the black version of Kid. Like great quality stuff, amazing storytelling. Then I said, okay, God's clearly calling me to ministry, but I don't want to do that. So like maybe I can build these clothes and then I'm ministering through the clothes. So like my message changed and all of that. And it's like God's like, yeah, you close, but you still ain't there yet. Like keep going. And now he's called me into this full place to where if I hadn't said yes, the memo wouldn't exist. Mm-hmm. Like, at all.
And now you are seeing the fruits of it in little small ways, but real ways that
powerful
these men are going back into their homes as single men, as married men, as fathers. And they are legitimately changing the way that they have a relationship with God and a relationship with every single person in their life.
God's whole not just a relationship with God, but everything God created is being affected.
Yeah.
By what we're doing every Wednesday. And now it's turned into a thing where like we got a group chat. We have to start a group me because men are like, yo, there's one guy in the group that has a Samsung phone. So it's like 22 of us in the group chat now on Apple. But he's like this past week, he's like, yo, man, like we gotta do a group me or something because I need in on this through the week because I need more than just Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
And Wednesday nights we on for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And so guys are like, I need to have access to this every day daily because that's how life is.
Yeah.
And it's wild because in this book I'm reading, it talks about like righteousness and how God showed them how to make clothing out of the inside of bark. And when they wore it, it was fully covering, but it would protect them from anything else, and only the righteous would wear it. Mm-hmm. So they would be known by everybody in the world, especially the wicked, as like their God is different. They're different. Like, but they would clothe them anytime they went out into the world. They would clothe themselves literally in righteousness, notifying everything and everybody around them that we're different.
Yeah.
But
hey, baby.
That's what Wednesday nights feels like. Like we're getting clothed in the righteousness to actually go out into the world and make an impact.
Yeah. Well, I think this is our ending point. Right, yeah. One baby just woke up. Sarai just walked in, hey, rubbing her eyes.
Hey, mama.
So this was an incredible conversation, babe. I'm really glad that we took the direction that we took today. And so I definitely hope that those listening in felt the Spirit of God, because I definitely did, and we talk all day, every day, and I'm still, getting so much from, what God is, using and saying through you, and what we're experiencing, and like how everything physical is spiritual, which makes life so much more interesting to navigate. So it is hot outside. It is.
She touched that chair probably, and the sun be hitting that chair, and she's like, yeah, this is hot. I didn't know it was going. I won't sit there after all.
Mark and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. It's truly a pleasure to be a part of your day. Keep up with us on social media, but also feel free to email us at team@thegodboltlife.com if you got any prayer requests or questions that we can answer. Until next time, chat soon. Bye.